Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Oswego Alumni Podcast. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Oswego Alumni Association, SUNY Oswego, or any of its officials. Email us with guest ideas or any other feedback at alumni@oswego.edu.
Welcome to the Oswego Alumni Podcast. I'm your host, Dee Perkins. People of a certain age watched WKRP in Cincinnati and were inspired to become radio disc jockeys, but it's the very few who managed to make it a lifelong career. It's even fewer that have been with the same station for over 34 years. We are so lucky today to be talking to 94.5 3WS's Mike Frazer. I said it wrong. Frazer, class of 1979. Mike, hi.
It's a common mistake, Dee. It's okay.
I know, but I've been doing it for years and years and years, and I feel like I should get it by now.
and I've been taking it. Look at me. Look at what it's done to me. Hey, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for asking me to be here.
Oh, this is so great. Mike and I have been seeing each other at Oswego State Palm dinners since, I'm going to guess, 1983. Does that sound right?
Maybe thereabouts. I mean, we started in 78. So, I mean, and I went to almost all of them. And then I was the creepy old guy in the corner. And I thought, I need to let this rest a little while. But yeah, that sounds about right. It started out as basically a radio, a WOCR, then WRVO effort, and because it was like the blue and the gray armies, and neither one of them really got along all that well. So there were some of us that were shapeshifters that could go back and forth, and we said, well, why don't we? And it was the 50th anniversary of WOCR, 25th, I'm sorry, and we said, well, let's kind of mush this all together, and we folded in the comm studies department, and from there it's changed a little bit, morphed in different directions, but that's how it started out.
Wow, and you were there at the beginning. And here's a fun fact. Did you know that there's another Mike Frazer out there, and he is a Canadian record producer and engineer? Are you ready for this? He mixed 6 records for AC/DC.
That's very interesting. I did not know that. I'd be happy to get some of his checks.
So let's go all the way back and figure out, you're a guy from Brooklyn, high school. What made you decide to leave New York City and go all the way up to Oswego for school?
Okay, well, just mild correction. I was born in Brooklyn, but I grew up on Long Island.
Okay.
Levittown, Old Bethpage. I was really active in the Boy Scouts, and I just felt that I really needed to just make a clean break and step out. I was accepted somehow to Emerson and Syracuse at the time, and I went to both schools and took a look at them. And they were both very expensive, and I wasn't that serious of a student. And I remember walking the streets of, I think it was Mulberry Street or something in Austin, if I remember correctly, and everybody was wearing a black turtleneck and carrying, like scripts and storyboards and things. And I just felt, this is the deep end of the pool, and I don't belong here. So it's also the economics at the time. Oswego was much more affordable, and it kind of came down to the last minute. And a friend of mine said he was going to Oswego, and it had a communications department, and it was by the lake. And I kind of went sight unseen and hope for the best. And I guess the way it all turned out is among other, evidences of the fact that there's a God, or there's karma or destiny or something.
Now that there's the internet out there and everything is online, it's kind of hard for people to imagine going somewhere sight unseen.
Yeah.
I too went sight unseen, and I got into Moreland Hall. And sure. I said, looking at the map, I said, oh, look, there's a forest, because it was just green. Look, there's a forest next door. I'll just be looking out at the greenery, and there's the lake. Yeah.
They didn't show you the big smokestacks behind you. We won't say what they are, because this is a official recording.
It was not in the book that they sent us.
It was not in the pamphlet.
So did you go up there knowing this was what you wanted to do? You wanted to be in communications?
Well, I had worked at the high school radio station. That they had an FM educational frequency, so I was there. And at the other thing, the public address radio station. Yeah, that's sort of what I wanted to do in my mind. I had wanted to be a doctor, but the sight of blood and bones, as I found out years later, would have been a mismatch. So yeah, I went up there thinking, like all of us did back then, that, okay, this is where the disc jockeys go. This is where the television people go. One of the great things about Oswego is that you were able to splinter off and pursue other interests that you might not have even knew existed. But
At this time, did WOCR exist at the Hewitt Union, or was it still? Yes.
Quick story that I've told before. Back then they had a comm studies introduction meeting, for lack of a better word. Everybody, it was in Sheldon Hall. All the faculty was there, and everybody who was a comm studies major went up to this thing. It was sort of like a scene from Animal House. And we schlepped up there one cold Oswego, September night, and all the faculty members said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm so-and-so," and we got a feel for everything. And then Doc O'Donnell popped up there, and all during all the other faculty members' presentations. Doc O'Donnell was a guy in the back with a beard and glasses, looking kind of, professorial, and he had a cup of coffee, and he's kind of holding court, kind of like Red Auerbach without the cigar. And I just thought, who is that guy? There's something regal about him. There's something, I think he might be the, Captain Kirk here. And he got up and he said, "Hey, my name's O'Donnell. People call me Doc." He says, "Put your hands. How many of you want to be on the air?" And virtually every pair of hands went up. He goes, "Okay." He goes, "Put them down." He goes, "Go home, because we don't want you." And all of us sobbed and leaked in places that we shouldn't have leaked. And it was just like, we can't go home. We have no car. His point then was, look, not everybody's going to be Michael Jordan. Keep your options open and get over yourself. And it was a lesson that stuck to this day.
I have a similar story. He was my mentor, and he said to me, "So you want to be on air?" And I can't do this. I can't do this justice. I really can't. And I said, "Yes." And he said, "You have a horrible Queen's accent. You'll never be on air. You should do sales."
Wow.
And so my question to you is, did that light a fire under you? Because it did for me.
No, it didn't light a fire. I was just kind of scared. My sister had taken my car. We were 6 hours from Bethpage, Long Island, and what the hell was I going to do? I was in a triple with Oneida, and no, it didn't. But it got my attention. It was kind of like hard love. These are the facts, and as he probably related to years later, I got into sales for a couple of years, and then I ended up going back. He always joked around and he goes, "You almost made it." There were so many people there that then and now really didn't have to be there. I mean, Doc and other faculty members had been in the business. They probably could have done much better in private industry, owning stations at the time or what have you. And he did have a piece of one, I believe, a couple at a time. But they were there, I think, for the right reasons. And altruistic, anything in education, ultimately, if it's done for the right reason, really changes lives, and certainly changed, and people like him changed yours and changed mine.
So you talked about people get a chance to try different things when they're in Oswego. Other than the campus radio station, did you branch out?
I was a major at Buckland's with a miter in the woodshed. Dabbled in Serenos and Lils, and I pretty much at one point I was thinking about minoring in psychology. I found that very interesting, and that was also the good thing about Oswego is we had a lot of people working at WOCR at the time who were not comm studies majors. They were business majors, and some of the people, as I said, some business majors zigged this way, some comm studies majors zigged that way. And one of the benefits of living to the ripe old age that I have, knock on wood, is that you kind of get to see how the story turned out for a lot of people. And it's so refreshing to see so many people who maybe didn't end up on the air, but have carved out wonderful places in life for themselves in the community, have great families, have changed lives in their own way. And I think that the Oswego experience absolutely made that possible.
Did you feel that the time you spent at WOCR kind of set you up to be a really good radio announcer once you decided
that is
to
yet
go
to come? We'll see. I think I'm a late bloomer. Stand by. The education was invaluable. I mean, there were some really talented people there in so many ways, and whether it was news or production or just anything. Some people who have I think one of the things at times that I fear we're losing in this day and age is that everybody's doing this. We're all looking like this rather than talking to someone and actually listening. And, we didn't have social media back then. Our social media was the college tavern, or trying to walk through the snow to get to a class or something along that line. But WOCR was absolutely a WRVO, and in more recent incarnations, WNYO, WTOP. It was they called it Video Visions back then. All of that was invaluable. And if you didn't learn from the experience, you'd learn from somebody else, and you say, "Well, that was good. Oh, I like that." It was competitive, but it wasn't, brutal. At least my experience. What was yours like back then?
Same. It wasn't competitive. I had a great program director, Mark LaBelle.
Okay.
And at the time, they actually, it's college radio, right? It was supposed to be, playing alternative, but he turned it into a top 40 station and taught us all how to hit the post. And, I was decent at it. There were other people there who were so much better at it, but I felt like that, he's a student and he was responsible for me graduating, and the tapes that I gave to program directors were pretty decent.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mark is a great example. And before I go any further, when I was thinking about our conversation, I mean, I went to Oswego in 1975. I mean, this is if there the people who are listening, it's like, here's George Washington telling you about how he bought the axe to chop the tree down. I mean, it's like, go away. But Mark, I'm familiar with and know. And Mark was someone who was on the air and worked in the business and then transitioned and into a whole entirely different line of work. And it was, hugely successful and was able to give back to Oswego as you have all these years later. Is that your cassette?
I was going to ask you, so how many of these do you have? Because I've been cleaning out my huge bag of cassettes.
I've got way too many for my wife's test.
You still have a lot of these?
Absolutely. I've got reel-to-reels. Absolutely. I'm a pack rat of the utmost capacity. It's terrible. The Oswego experience and the approach, I think, has really been consistent. And the sense of community that has grown along the way. It's all the same. Change the names change the call letters, change the names of the instructors. But fortunately, there's a thread of continuity that's really pretty admirable.
So you graduate, spend a little time bouncing around upstate New York, finally it can't be that much time because then you get to Pittsburgh and 35 years later.
Well, no, there were stops. I went to Syracuse and then Baltimore. I was going to get married and that didn't work out. So I went to Baltimore and then Philadelphia and then Pittsburgh. Yeah. So Pittsburgh 35 years ago. Yeah.
So you walk into the station that I don't even know if it had the same name. Does it have the same name?
The one I came to Pittsburgh for?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's been blown up. It's been sold 3 or 4 times. The building's been torn down. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Worked with wonderful people, but no, it wasn't meant to be.
So I know you do afternoon drive. When you started 34 years ago, was it always afternoon drive, or did you go through the ringer of all different kinds of air
You
shifts?
come in working part-time and you hope and pray that, that you fit in and there's an opening and that happened. And then one point about 20 years ago, I slid across the hall and did mornings at the Jam and Oldies station because, you look at me, you think Jam and Oldies. And then back here again. And just very, very blessed.
Has it changed what you're doing and the way a shift works? What's changed between 35 years ago? I know we're going to be here for a couple hours. What's changed between then and now?
We came in my Conestoga wagon at the time. Everything's changed. As you know firsthand, you're being very generous. It was done in real time. It wasn't, the computers were minimal if available at all. The business itself, my God, I'm in a facility here now in Pittsburgh, the iHeart Radio Media facility. There's 6 stations plus a couple of HD channels here, all same company. Back then, there would have been maybe 5, 6 owners for the same amount of frequencies. So you would have had 5 or 6 staffs. You would have had, a promotions director. You would have had separate air staffs. You would have had engineering staff. You would have had marketing and sales staff. Now it's all kind of been crunched down in this consolidation thing, which works very well in lots of ways, but it's narrowed the job opportunities. So you've really got to Doc O'Donnell's point back 50 years ago, whatever it was. Keep your options open, because any kind of crack in the armor, you've got to see it and fly through it and learn on the go. It's like actors on Yellowstone. They said, can you ride a horse? And you go, oh, I can ride a horse. It's like, it's radically changed. I mean, that's a really long conversation, but changed in lots of good ways, but also for purists, for old fashioned type folks, I think some of the magic has left it, kind of like that restaurant that used to make the really good pies. And then they started using a different kind of butter, and they use a different kind of oven now, and it still tastes good, but maybe to our senses, it was a little bit better back then.
One of my favorite things as I'm listening to these tapes is the crosstalk between the person who, did 6 to 10, and then you're coming in at 10 a.m. So you'd have a little crosstalk, and then, at 3 o'clock you would leave and you would have a little talk with the guy who was coming in after you. You were saying some people, because of COVID, still work from home. So the opportunity to crosstalk doesn't happen anymore.
Well, not in a real way. I mean, sometimes with technology, you can do it as we're doing it now. And if you have a mind to do it, truth be told, a lot of the people on a station after a certain point are not even in the market. They're coming in from another town. Someone's doing 4, 5, 6, 7 stations. And the beauty of it is they can localize it to the point where they sound like they're there. They can be talking about, the traffic jam on Bridge Street or something. Wow. And the guy could be in Idaho. There were certain philosophies about, well, you don't want to necessarily call attention to the next person coming, because then you're inviting tune out. I mean, they've analyzed this thing to the point of whatever. So, yeah.
Oh my God, the thing that I loved is a tune out? Oh,
maybe. Sorry.
Wow.
People still do it. I think people like to know when they're listening that you get along with each other. And that was a great opportunity to talk kind of informally. I think in my case, the boss found that less of me is better. I remember a friend of mine applied for a job, and the program director said, this is someone from Oswego, actually. And he goes, Nate, I think you'd fit in real good here. I like you. I like your approach. He goes, but I just can't get over your Central New York accent. He goes, you got to go home. You got to work on that. You got to read the newspaper into a machine and just really work on that. And the guy said, okay. And he went. And maybe a month or two later, he gave him basically the same tape back. And he said, what have you done? I can't believe the improvement. Wow. And he went on to a really long career. So who's to say,
You have the best stories. Oh my God, that's fantastic.
Well, and the other thing I would point out is, if you don't want to hear the answer, don't ask the question. I worked with a woman. She goes, well, I haven't had an air check session in a long time. So I gave him a tape. And he came back and he said, I needed to do this and I need to do that. And I said, don't ever do that again.
No, don't give him the tape. What are you doing?
Well, leave well enough alone.
There was a big post in my radio station. So you would have to kind of walk around it. So the program director's office was on this side and you were walking on this side. I would always walk close so that he would never see me. And it was like sneaking in, sneaking out. I'll never see you again.
I might still be doing that, but I would never say for sure that I would be doing that. I would never publicly verify that. But
so aside from on air, I know you're also involved in charitable organizations. Is all the work, because of work that the radio station brings to you, or are there charitable organizations that are close to your heart?
A little bit of both. Sometimes it's something that the station's involved with. Sometimes it's something that I've somehow, gravitated towards or seen an opportunity to help out with. And I really think, if anything, maybe that's why I'm still here. If you want to get big picture wise, it's like, if I can do anything at all, back then everybody wanted to be back in the, Dan Ingram, Scott Shannon, whatever, pick your Bob Buckman, I don't know, pick your icon. But along the way, the business has changed. The expectations from the company has changed. They don't really want you sticking out all that much unless they've invested in you and they give you that freedom to. I mean, I can't even take requests, and people don't seem to understand that. But it's like, no, we have a music log, and follow the recipe. But at this point in my life, if I can do anything at all, Alzheimer's has become something that I think Parkinson's, Salvation Army. I've gotten very involved with Soldiers and Sailors Hall, Memorial Hall and Museum here in Pittsburgh, and things along that line. The key is to try to give them a loudspeaker, a voice, because like with the other stations shrinking, their window for public affairs has sadly diminished, as you know. But yeah, I try to do what I can. The other night we had a station event, and a woman came up to me, and she said, I just love you because you try to say things that are positive. You try to, I feel like you're looking out for me a little bit, and it's like, I am the last person you want looking out for you in lots of ways. Let's be candid, Dee. Come on, but it's nice to hear that some of that humanity is that I've evolved that way. It's sort of like a mirror. It's like, oh yeah, I guess I do. I guess you talk about your wife, you talk about your dogs, you talk about we'll get through this together. Yeah, I guess I do that. One fellow came up to me. He goes, I've been waiting 10 years to meet you. He goes, I just know it. You walk with God, don't you, sir? And I said, well, yes, sir. I think I do. He goes, yeah. He goes, with grace, right? I said, yes, sir. And he goes, what church you go to? I said, well, actually, I'm Jewish. He goes, he goes, but you believe in Jesus Christ, don't you? I said, yes, sir. I do. He goes, well, okay. But I connected with him on some way. But again, people try to put you in boxes. We have lots of colors to paint with, don't we?
So you still have the freedom on air to throw in these things about your wife and your dog?
I guess, or either that or the boss is too busy doing other things and hasn't found out yet. I do it a little bit. I try not to make it too autobiographical, because heck, they can't even pronounce my name half the time. Oh, I'm sorry, too soon. No, but no, I just once in a while, just a little. I mean, through the grace of God, I've got grandsons now, and my wife's daughter, the mother of our first grandson, like a lot of people at her age, she's 40 years. She's 40-ish. And she doesn't really listen to the radio the way that most people do. It's Spotify, it's this, it's that. But she had it on in the car when she was picking him up from preschool. And she goes, hey, that's Papa. And he hears my voice. And he called me. He goes, Papa, I heard you on the radio. He goes, you get paid for that? It's like, you get paid for talking? I said, yes. Yeah. So yeah, I think anything, people, a smile is contagious. I think you try to talk to people about things that hopefully they're concerned about. The heat. And this year, the Pirates are doing better than usual, and so are the Mets, which is very troublesome for me right now because I'm kind of torn.
Don't talk about that on the air.
Right.
The Mets. Don't talk about the Mets.
I wore my Mets hat in a parade one time. I never heard the end of that. But yeah, I mean, I think we need more humanity, and there's a lot of things I can't do, but if I can, you may not believe it, but I can speak rather quickly. So on occasion, if I've got, I'm able to, it's not all about me, but every once in a while it kind of slips out. So
one of the things I love about you is generally whenever I'm at Oswego, you seem to be there. And it obviously has a big place in your heart. Absolutely. Why do you keep going back?
I go to swim. The water behind you. We bring our kayak and we go out and we fill it with rocks, and it's our family. It's my life. I mean, like a lot of people, I left Long Island at 18 and basically didn't go back. And the sense of community that we developed in Oswego is continual. I mean, I was just back reunion weekend, a little while ago. We saw you and Hank in front of Riggs. It's just to me, my grandma Clara was from the old country. She was about 4'0". And every time she saw me in her broken Polish accent, she'd say, Michael, you give me 10 years life, and going back to Oswego gives me 10 years life. And my wife, well, again, proof that there is a God, came along and she took to it immediately. And everyone to her, how could you not? She's the magnet. I'm just kind of tagging along. It's just a magical place. It was strange trying to get a beer after 10 o'clock on Thursday, this past reunion, and finding that most of the places were closed, but the drinking age, everything's changed. It's just the town itself is so beautiful now that, and the park, the Riverwalk Park and the people. I mean, to be able to go back and have a dinner with your roommates or classmates or people you've gotten to know who are a little bit younger or a lot younger like you, years later, and say how just pick up the conversation. So how are things going? Oh, you're retiring. Oh, show me the grandkids. We made my wife. We made up the story that she was an Oswego graduate and that she went to school. She would study meteorology with Al Roker, and that's our story, and we're sticking to it.
She is lovely. So
She's the best.
Yeah, she gets the green and gold just because she's been to a lot of reunions and a lot of
and she's lived with this. So
yeah,
gold medal there.
So a lot of kids today might be watching this or listening to it.
Might not be,
but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this. People who still want to get into radio, you're the guy who's done it for a very long time. What's the advice you would give them?
Play the lottery. Powerball's good. Mega Millions. Oh no, I would say follow your heart. I mean, Oswego was a great place for just so many starts of life. Some people had a false start and then shifted over and continued on. We used to joke around back then. There were industrial arts, a lot of industrial arts majors, and a great school for that. Remember Dr. Smith used to say, God bless him, he'd say, IA all the way, make a project, throw it away. But we met all these people, and some of them have gone on amazing careers, and they too have gone back to teaching. As far as the advice goes, I would harken back to your advisor and my advisor, Dr. O'Donnell, to begin with, and that is keep your options open. Realize no one's going to hand anything to you. It's more competitive, sadly, now than it ever was. That being said, you have more tools at your disposal to prospectively navigate the waters. Follow your heart, but unlike back then, I would say maybe there's a more of a pressing need for a fallback plan or an adjacent plan or something. A lot of the people, at least anecdotally here in Pittsburgh, a lot of the people along the way who have gotten full-time jobs for a long time were working 39 hours, didn't have benefits. That's something that's you'll find in industries across America everywhere. So you may need a full-time job to do this if that's what you want to do. You may have to go out and be a podcaster, be an influencer, something along that way. Those are certainly viable, but everybody wants to do that. That's like being Michael Jordan now. I'm going to be an influencer. I'm going to make $1 million with YouTube, and some do, many don't. Some people will say, do what you do, and you'll never work a day in your life. I'm not quite that Pollyannish. I mean, I think do what you want to, and there are going to be days when you don't necessarily feel like doing it, but that's part of the experience. Stay in touch with people. One of the things someone told me over the years is all things being equal, people like to work with people they like. So you never know who's going to call you. That's how I got started in Syracuse radio. I was walking the halls of WRVO, and Rick Yacobush, the class of 77, I think, was there, and he was talking with John Krause, God bless him. And they were going, who can we? And I just happened to walk by. Now, was I supposed to walk by? Was I not supposed to walk by? I don't know. That's for bigger, wiser people to meet and to ponder. But he absolutely paved the way for me to get down there and get the job. At the time, I was going against a guy who became a very great friend named Peter King, who's on CBS News all the time. And we joke around to this day that the program director, John Gabriel, had a choice between then Mike Frazer and Peter King, and he chose Mike Frazer. and he really shouldn't have. But again, having that in certainly helps. Another thing the guy told me was, all things being considered, when you have the chance, don't work for idiots. No, that wasn't a word he used, but it starts with an A and ends with an S. Idiots. Don't work for idiots, and just try to get along. And don't be a jerk yourself, because it comes back and hits you. Karma.
Yep. And if you're in school right now and it's something in your heart and you want to do it, then I would say my experience is just practice. I had a roommate who was from upstate New York. I was from Queens. I did have that Queens accent. Cyndi Lauper and me.
I never heard that with you. I'm surprised to hear that. I've never heard
my
that.
God. I could talk. I talked like this in the very beginning. I mean, not this high, because I don't think I ever had it, but that's my Cyndi Lauper. Yeah, I can do that. Talk to my mother, and it's like, oh, there it is. It's all there.
Whatever. I get ideas.
People tell me if I'm a little sleepy or had a couple of adult beverages that it comes back a little bit. But
there's no shame in that. Like I said, I get tired. I have ideas. But
there you go.
Well, Linda Cohen, Oswego graduate, I think a little bit before you, a little bit after me, but she'd be the first to tell you. I don't think I'm telling tales out of school. She had a very pronounced Long Island accent, and I heard her years later on CBS FM, and certainly she's gone on to ESPN and just a great acclaim. But when she does radio, she gets a little animated, and the accent will come out. She goes, "I told him, but when I get animated, it's going to come out." But you can accomplish anything. People who are camera shy, who are now, it's like second nature to them. It just, Oswego makes it possible. It's a nurturing, naturing sort of place to be at, and the people have the right touch, and the community, the sense of community, and the path in all businesses, whether it's politics or theater or arts or science, medical medicine. I mean, I'm just amazed. The guy from down the hall did all this with his life, and it wasn't in radio. It's a really, it gives you 10 years life, or at least I love the place, love the people there, and if you find someone who's been there, they generally feel the same way, don't they?
Yes. Oh yeah. And then I talked to people who didn't go to Oswego, and a dear friend's husband went to Harvard, and I say, so do you have friends from Harvard? Do you have text group that you talk to? And he's like, nope, nobody.
That's sad. See that when I was in high school in Old Bethpage, I worked at a movie theater. I might have been 17, 18. I was getting ready to go to college, and the manager of the theater was 24, and he looked sort of like John Travolta. Really hip, Wally was his name. Hip guy. He came in, he spoke to, and he goes, "Hey, Michael." And I said, I'm going to college. Where you going? SUNY Oswego's. Best 4 years of my life. Best 4 years of my life. And at the time, being 17 or 18, little part of me said, "Shut up, old man." It's like, I was like, all right, fine. Okay, fine. Whatever you say. Sure. But, there's a lot to be said for it. And, if you go into it expecting it to be that way, it probably won't be. You just have to kind of take it for what it is, absorb it, and then with the blessing of time and some wisdom, you kind of realize just how lucky you've been.
Very true. All right. So last question I always ask is the Oscar speech. If you were being handed an Oscar,
the Oscar speech.
The Oscar speech. If you were being handed an Oscar, who would you like to thank for your time and your great success from Oswego? And it could be students, it could be teachers, anybody.
See, this is the problem because when I was thinking about our conversation earlier, if you mention one person, then you don't mention another one, and by omission, it's like you're casting shade on them, and that's not the intention. But if I was at the Oscars, they'd play me off. I'd start riffing on things at the risk of sounding evangelical. I guess I'd like to thank God, karma, destiny, whatever it was that's led me on this path to where we are today. Love to thank my parents and just anybody along the way that was kind and that helped or wasn't kind. Sometimes you need a firm hand, and certainly my wife these days, and you for chatting with me. I wasn't in Hamilton. I've done very little other than fly under the radar all these years, and it's just nice to be back and chatting about something that's very near and dear that I think people need to appreciate.
First of all, 34. I said this earlier. I'm going to say it again. 34 years at the same radio station is just unbelievable, an unbelievable achievement. And as I said to you earlier, anybody can email me and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I don't know anybody who's an Oswego grad. Obviously, it exists in the industry, but an Oswego grad that's been at the same station for that long. And we're not counting Al Roker because that's not radio, that's television. So I'm talking about radio. So
I appreciate that. Al Roker was actually the one who gave me my voice audition years ago. The very first time he had overalls on and an afro, and I went in and I read the copy. He goes, "Oh, you seem to know what you're doing. Read the copy." And I never heard back from them again. So I went down there a couple of days later, and he goes, "Oh, we lost your tape and you lost your phone number." Yeah. But you're very kind. I mean, it's tenure alone does not necessarily equate to competency. I'm proof of that. But yeah, it's highly unlikely and very appreciated.
And also you just have such a huge heart for the school. So how could we not talk to you? It's all green and gold in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And a huge belly from all my Oswego subs and my stops at Rudy's and Bev's and Wade's and everything else.
All right. So if you are looking for Mike and you want to reach out to him, he is on LinkedIn and he's at the 94.53 WS website. So that's where you can find him.
And I do very little with LinkedIn because I just don't care. I'm there. I would care if you reached out.
Mike, I got to say, this has just been terrific. Thank you for spending time with us. I appreciate it.
Dee, thanks for inviting me back. It's always great to be at Oswego. I see it right there. My God. And thank you for walking me through the Zoom process too. There's checks in the mail.
That's $100 an hour engineering fee that goes into this.
Oh, it's gone up. All right. Well, there you go. Inflation.
All right. And if you want to reach out to us with guest ideas, you can find us on Facebook or LinkedIn, or you can email us at alumni@oswego.edu. We're always looking for ideas from our over 92,000 alumni. I'm Dee Perkins, and we'll see you next time on the Oswego Alumni Podcast.